most of you I know at least a little bit. Some of you I know. So that's too bad. Good one, huh? I do what Matt Bond does, but for middle school kids. But before I went to seminary, I spent 3 years doing improvisational comedy professionally. So if you've seen Whose Lines It Anyways, it's usually people's best reference to what we did. And so that was a short form, competitive style improv show, and that's what I did. And so I got to travel around and do shows, and we had a theater in Springfield, Missouri, where I was living at the time. So a lot of people look at improv and they think, oh, it's just a bunch of witty, funny people, and you're just born that way or something like that. But there's actually a lot of underlying principles that everybody on stage has to agree to in order to make what they do possible. Because it's a pretty terrifying thing for most people to say, I'm going to stand up in front of hundreds of people who are expecting me to make them laugh, and I will have absolutely no preparation, right? That's a terrifying feeling for a lot of people. I'm sure we've all heard somebody says there's a statistic that public speaking is the #1 fear in the United States, above and beyond the fear of death. Like, people would rather die than speak publicly or teach publicly, which is its close cousin. And so a lot of what happens in improvisation and the principles and the theory that was behind it, I think models very closely what Jesus had to say about leadership. So servant leadership is a fairly popular term. I'm sure I'm not like putting those two words together for the first time for any of you. And I'm sure I don't probably have to convince anybody that that is what kind of Jesus directed us towards. But I do want to actually look at the Bible just briefly before we kind of get into talking about how the things that stand behind improvisation make what makes it possible. So I'm going to start in Mark 10. This is verses 35 through 45. Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him. Teacher, they said, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. What do you want me to do for you? He asked. They replied, let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory. You don't know what you are asking, Jesus said. Can you drink the cup I drink or be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with? We can, they answered. Jesus said to them, you will drink the cup I drink and be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with. But to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared. When the 10 heard about this, and this part's important, they became indignant with James and John. Jesus called them together and said, you know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. A couple things to point out in there. When James and John said we want to sit at your right and left, they are asking for actual positions of power. It's not just because they want to sit close to Jesus because he's the most popular guy in the room. They're actually asking to be given a position where they will have authority and power over other people. And that is why the rest of the disciples get so ticked off. It says that they became indignant. And it's probably not too hard to imagine why they would be. But it tells us something about the power systems that leadership often takes in the world apart from the Holy Spirit. That it is a hierarchy with the power is vested at the top and it slowly trickles down to a few people and broadens out. What that does by nature is put people who should be working together in competition with one another. James and John are in competition with Peter and the rest of the disciples for those few positions of power, right? So they're asked it by nature. If we lead in this sort of way, it puts us in competition with people rather than working together. And Jesus' word is, he says, not so with you. That cannot be how it happens. And that really cannot be how it happens as we lead groups of students, where we are the authoritarian, power-possessing leader who is dispensing grace and mercy into kids. And we'll get to what the alternative is in a second. But I think one of the most startling things as I was, when I originally prepared to lead the all-staff at Jacques was alluding to, I wasn't going to talk about improvisation at all. I was just going to talk about servant leadership and what that means. And I was reading a book, and it led me to Matthew chapter 23, and it was a different translation than what's in the TNIV, which is what I'm reading here, which I'll point out for a minute. But just to start in verse 8, he says, "But you are not to be called rabbi, for you have only one master, and you are all brothers. And do not call anyone on earth father, for you have one Father, and he is in heaven. Nor are you to be called teacher, for you have one teacher, the Messiah. The greatest among you will be your servant. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." So when I read it in this other book, instead of saying, "Nor are you to be called teacher, for you have one teacher," it said, "Nor are you to be called leader, for you have one leader, the Messiah." So I pulled out the Greek text and expected to find the word didaskalon, which it's where the word like didactic, that sort of like teaching, comes from this Greek word didaskalon, and that is the most common New Testament word for teacher. And that's what I expected to be in here, and it's not. It's a different word. And it's a noun that is made from the verb that would mean, like, if I was going to lead Jolene across a bridge. Like, it's like physical direction leader, and that's what it says. You are not to be called leader. I was like, whoa. We call you guys leaders? That's like your role in this ministry, right? In the church, we talk about, we want to be able to lead well, and here's this verse, and I was like, what do I do with that? You are not to be called leader if you have one leader, the Messiah. And kind of what I came to is that we've made this servant leadership is not a biblical term. It's a term that we've made to try to describe what Jesus did. But over and over again, what I think we find in the text is a call to servanthood, not servant leadership. That's like this hybrid version that conforms a little bit more with the expectations of the world all around us. But I believe that what Jesus is calling us to is servanthood, which is a slightly different thing. So what does servanthood mean? This is not rhetorical. From this point on, we're all going to interact a lot more, so I'm kind of done talking didactically at you. What does servanthood mean? Anybody? Nobody knows. It's a tough word.
Being willing to put yourself at someone else's, give someone else what they need.
Yes. Yeah, to do something for someone else.
Also, like the servanthood that you emphasized, that would mean that it's like a practice or a way of being rather than just being like a servant at one time, but having that be like the way you're living your whole life.
That's like a lifestyle, not just a role that you play. That's a really important distinction. Yeah.
Well, there's also the issue of who you're serving. So Jesus would probably be who you're serving rather than the people you're trying to help.
Right. Extremely important thing when you're working with kids. Yeah, I mean, we want great things to happen for these kids, but ultimately we are participating in a way that God has invited us into what God has in store for those kids. Oftentimes it's like, what do I have to give to, for me it's middle school kids too. I've got a group of 6th grade boys. It's like, what can I give them? Well, there's stuff I can do, and, mentorship is important for anybody. But ultimately what I desire for them is so much more, and it's something that only God can provide. And when I realize that I can't do it, only God can, then what it points to is that I'm serving God's purposes in the lives of the students that I've been entrusted with. That my service ultimately is to God, and it's acted out in my relationship with kids. And then so that's kind of like what servanthood is. So why servanthood? And I think it's because what we're all in the business of doing here is something that it's impossible to do. We can plant the seed, but only God can make it grow. If our goal is to see kids have lives who are radically transformed by a knowledge of Jesus Christ and a life that is embodied by the Holy Spirit, I don't have a big bag full of Holy Spirit to pour out on a kid. Our role is beyond the scope of any human being ever, which means that we better be attached to something bigger, something more powerful that we are in the process of serving, because I can't dispense it. Oftentimes, I've used the language, we're going to lead kids to Christ. And more I'm struck by the poor wording of that statement, because it makes some assumptions. First, that the kids are somewhere where Jesus isn't already. It puts the agency on me. I'm the one who's going to, like, Jesus is over there, kids over there, and I will get them over there. That puts a ton of pressure on me. And I'm sure you can't do this job and love kids and not feel that pressure. Like, oh, if only I had said something different at this moment, or somehow managed to respond in a different way during our group, then this kid would know Jesus. And it puts all of this, like, crushing pressure on us. And that's not how it should be. I can't lead a kid to Jesus. I can participate in what God is already doing in that kid's life. And I think that is such an important thing for us to realize. At this church, like, our overall church goal is so that everyone in the Bay Area can thrive. Everyone in the Bay Area is like 7 million people. I think that's the count, kind of like that counts the East Bay. That's a lot of people. And this is a pretty big church, but not nearly big enough to do that if it's going to be people who are out there doing it. But what we do believe is that when we can partner with a God who is more than capable of taking on even those largest amounts of people, or even those toughest kids in our groups, the ones who don't want to come, or the ones who you almost wish they wouldn't, because they make things so much harder when they're there. None of that is beyond God's power, but oftentimes is absolutely, totally beyond our power. If we are the one who's in charge, who is leading that kid, then we're kind of destined to fail. But it's this freeing thing. We say, I have the God who created the entire universe. Like, you can go out at night and hold a dime up to the sky and know that there's 10 billion stars obscured by that dime, right? The God who made all of that is more than capable of quieting down the kid who talks during the entire Stripe group, or whatever the case may be. Okay, so that's all the boring part where I talk, and now we're actually gonna we're all gonna participate together and do some improvisational comedy scenes. You guys excited about that? It's gonna be really fun. That's the nervous laugh. Don't call on me. There's like daggers being shot at me from this couch right here. So oftentimes people will, when they hear what I used to do, will come and say, hey, do an improv. Just go. Ha-ha. And it's just always makes for a very awkward moment, because I can't just do an improv, because by its nature, improv is a team activity. You cannot do it by yourself. When you do it by yourself, it's called stand-up comedy, and you have unlimited preparation time. It's a very different animal. And so it only works in a team. And what it really requires is a team that works together in better than any team I've ever been a part of, actually. Doing a scene with a team that I've worked closely with for a long time, built a ton of trust with, allowed for things to happen that I haven't been able to replicate yet in kind of any other environment. Because what it takes for improv to work well is a team that is absolutely committed to serving one another. You have to be able to go on stage knowing that the person you are on stage with is absolutely committed to your success. And that person has to be able to trust the same from you. Not that you're going up there to make yourself look good, which is oftentimes what you want to do, because it's scary. And usually the way that we make ourselves look good is by making others look bad. By comparison, I look awesome if he looks like an idiot. But that doesn't work. Like, if you went to a show like that, you'd get up and walk out, because it'd be absolutely terrible. Because oftentimes, like, just the funny, witty person, when you're at a restaurant or just hanging out, a lot of times those people make really poor improvisers. Because it's not about getting a funny joke in. It's about being with people and building something together that you couldn't have done separately. So here are a couple of the principles that are the most important ones that lie behind improv, and then we're going to play a game to demonstrate one. So the most basic, important rule, the one that you can never break, is called yes and. And here's the basic idea. If I'm on stage with Jolene, and I say something like, hello, Dr. Smithson, I'm so glad you're able to fit me in. My molars are killing me, right? I've made some statements. I've said she's a doctor, not just a doctor, she's a dentist. Her name is Dr. Smithson. We're in her office. She's snuck me in. All of that. And you know about me that I have a cavity, like I'm in pain. If she were to say, I'm not Dr. Smithson, my name is Greg, and I'm an NBA basketball player, right? she has said no to all of the things I have suggested, and she's probably going to get a laugh, and you're all are going to laugh at me, because I now look like a total idiot, because I've said all this stuff, and she said, no, you're wrong. So the first part of yes and is yes. Like, when that sort of thing comes out, Jolene has to agree with the stage that I have set. But if she just says yes, then all of your eyes are going to shoot back at me, and now all of the pressure of the scene is back on me again. So I've already added all the details that you know, and now I have to continue the rest. So the idea is it's yes and. She has to then continue the scene, add some new detail. So she can say, yes, well, it was really hard. I've got a lot of trouble at home right now. Well, now we have something interesting. She has some problems at home, you know, and those are going to come out in the scene. We're going to figure out what that is. Maybe her cat's sick, has chickenpox or something, you know, just something ridiculous like that. So I've got pain, and she's got a cat with chickenpox, right? So we've got issues. We've now gotten to this really weird place together, though. And the crowd realizes that I had no idea she was going to have a cat with chickenpox, just like she didn't know I was going to have a cavity when we started. But by agreeing with it and moving forward, we've allowed the scene to progress. The average improv scene is 3 to 5 minutes long. You don't have time to disagree with one another, because you've got 3 minutes to get a story moving far enough to make it funny. And if you're constantly bickering back and forth, the storyline doesn't progress. When you guys took literature, you were probably taught, you know, like, conflict is what drives a novel along. And so you're looking for conflict. Well, conflict is an awful, awful thing in an improv scene because it is such a short format. The two people, like, technically there is still conflict, but it cannot be personal conflict between the two people who are speaking to one another, because they have to be able to get somewhere with it. So, oh yeah, one last thing. I noticed when I did improv a lot, that there were 7 people on our team. 2 of them were my roommates. That's who I spent all my time with them. They were my best friends. And when we would like go out and hang out, it was hysterical, because there was this commitment to agree. Like if I started a joke and it, you know, sometimes it just doesn't work. You know, you're trying to say something funny. It's like, no. I knew the other 6 people were going to jump in and add things to it, agree with it, and they're like, together, gosh darn it, we will make this funny. There were times I'd be hanging out with other people, and what normally happens when you start a joke and it's not funny, somebody was like, yeah, that was a good one, you know? And I would be like deeply hurt. And I was like, what just happened to me? That's pretty normal. But it's because I got so accustomed to working with people who are going to take care of me, who are going to agree and help, add something new to the scene to make sure that it went okay, that I got to the point that in what is really a regular social interaction where somebody cut me down, I noticed it so much more. When they first started doing improv, they found that given the option to agree or disagree on stage, people would disagree. And I think that's what happens in social interactions apart from the Holy Spirit. We tend to disagree. We tend to tear each other down. We tend to not be supportive and encouraging. And so the things that happen when the Holy Spirit inhabits our lives, when we begin to be supportive, to agree, were the things that these, you know, non-Christian people who were first kind of inventing what we now know as improv. That's what it took to make a good scene, which I think is fairly interesting. So we're going to start with a game called the Ad Game, and I need some volunteers. So who wants to play a game? Games are fun. Everybody loves games. Great, come on up. Oh. Yeah, you got to come up here.
Yeah.
I need 3 more people. Come on, Morgan, thank you. Great. Maddie, thank you too. I appreciate that. Come on up. Yeah, come on. I saw you trying desperately not to make eye contact. So here's how this game is going to work. You guys are going to we work in a marketing firm. Do you guys do marketing? No, good, perfect. We'll just make it up as we go. I'm going to be leading the meeting. I am in a moment, I'm going to get an idea of just a common household product from the audience here. I'm going to get an idea for some new ability or power that it has that it normally wouldn't have. So an example would be, you know, I might have asked Eric and he'd say dog food, and I'd ask Tim and he'd say it makes your dog talk, right? And so I've called us in. I'm going to say, you know, our biggest client just called, and they've got a new product they needed to drop, and here's what we need to get for this product. We need a name. So we're going to have to come up with a name. we need a slogan. We're going to have to come up with a slogan. We got to decide who our target market is, who we're going to try to sell it to. And then we have to design our first commercial. Okay, so all those things. We get a name, a slogan, we got to pick our market, and then we have to design like the storyboard of our first commercial, and we have 5 minutes to do all of that. The way that we're going to be able to get it all done is, as soon as anybody offers a suggestion, which needs to be immediate once I pose the question, every single person, and you guys are going to help us too, is going to go over the top and affirming that. So if somebody, it's like, if it's dog food that makes your dog talk, it's going to be like Rover speaks. Like, even if it's a terrible idea, like the one I just said, everybody's going to be like, yes! Brilliant! Genius, you're a warrior poet! Like, you got to go crazy affirming it, okay? And so as a leader, I'll be kind of taking us through, like, okay, we need a title. What's it going to be? Somebody's going to say it, and we are just going to move forward, and everybody is just going to jump over the moon because it's going to be the best idea you've ever heard. Okay? Everybody ready? Okay. So I need a common household product. Foot cream. All right. Foot cream. And
Makes you fast.
foot cream that makes you fast. I like that. It's foot cream that makes you fast. Okay. Okay, guys, I'm so glad you're able to get here. I know it's the middle of the night. You're very tired. Please help yourself to coffee. I got a call from our biggest client. They have a new product, and we have to be able to launch tomorrow. All right? I do not have to impress on you how important this is. Biggest client. The future of the firm lies in the balance. Here's what we've got. They have a new kind of foot cream, but it's not antifungal. It doesn't fight bacteria. It doesn't stop you from itching. Here's what it does. It makes you go faster. It literally helps you be fast. We don't have a title. What are we going to call this product?
Cheetah cream.
Cheetah cream! That is perfect. Cheetah cream. Yes, cheetah cream. I love it. I love it. That is going to sell big. Okay. Cheetah cream. We need a slogan. Something pithy. Something catchy. What's our slogan?
Blur.
People love onomatopoeias. This is so good. Cheetah cream. Blur. It's going to be huge. It's way better than swoosh. Blur. Good. Okay. Cheetah cream. Blur. Who needs cream to make them go faster? Who are we going to sell this to? I know.
Olympic runners.
Olympic runners! Because they're not fast enough. That's right. Cheetah cream, blur. Selling it to Olympic runners. Okay, we need a commercial. We got to be able to shoot this in a couple of hours. All right. What are we going to do?
We need an old woman.
Okay, we got an old woman.
Yes.
Talk about her. She's old.
Yeah.
Walker, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Walk me slowly.
Okay. She's a former Olympian, obviously.
Okay.
Cheetah.
Okay, so we got an old woman. She's staring down a cheetah. She's got a walker in between her. She's very slow.
And then she just tosses her walker aside.
Tosses it.
Starts running with the cheetah, and the whole thing blurs out.
Whoa!
Yes! Awesome. You guys can sit back down. Blur. That's so great. How does it feel when you can say anything and people are like, yeah! It's the best thing ever. Good.
It was really funny.
And it ends up being funny, right?
Yeah.
One of the cool things about improv that is you always have a kinder audience than a stand-up comedian does. Because when you're sitting out there and you know that they didn't know what was about to happen, like that something new was created by a bunch of people all working together, that makes it funnier. If it's a stand-up comedian, you're like, you literally have had your entire life to write this. Like, unlimited prep time is going to make for a much more skeptical and cynical audience. And I think that's something that we experience in real life. Like, if we are working with people, the feel that comes from it is so different than if it's something that we've just had to be locked away in an office by ourselves, planning everything out. That The idea that if we all come together and each lay a brick, the house that we build is better than the one we build by ourselves. Because it comes with input of so many different people and so many different ideas that can be a part of that. One of the cool things about this is a game that we would oftentimes do in practice, which is something you do when you do improv. Surprise, a lot of people don't expect that, but there's a lot like drills. But this is an early one that you do to just reinforce agreement because it's over the top and it's expected. When you can start to add that kind of immediate agreeing response into another sort of scene that's not what the scene is about, it carries over, which is a really cool thing. But it helps us build towards this thing called group mind, which is super important in improvisation and which I think is really important in small groups. Where if you're able to have a whole group that is focused in on supporting and caring for one another, that is not there to seek their own best, but to care for the person next to them and to support that person. It makes you more aware. If you watch closer, you pick up cues better, because you're stop trying to force yourself in to get your agenda met, and instead you're like able to say, what do I need in this group in order to support Bonnie? Like, what does she need out of this? How do I serve her in that way? And in the same way, serve what God's purposes are. But yeah, it just makes it so much more fun when we do that. Okay, next rule is we would oftentimes call it justify stupid. But the idea is support. And so it's like I was saying earlier, where if I had a joke that tanked, I would know that everybody else was going to get my back and make it happen. Before every show that I did for 3 years, oftentimes I was doing like 3 or 4 shows a week. The last thing that we would do before going on stage, everybody would put their hand in the middle, we'd say a prayer, we'd go 1, 2, 3, do it for Riley. Riley was this awesome little kid with Down syndrome who was at a show we did once and just loved. Our group's called the Skinny Improv. Riley loved the Skinny Improv. We gave him like a free t-shirt and any swag that we had, we gave Riley. He hugged everybody 10 times. It was awesome. So every show we did, we'd do it for Riley. But then we would go, got your back. And you would go around and you would slap every single person in the group on the back before every single show, and every person would do it to you. That idea, I got your back. I'm going to take care of you out there. You got nothing to be afraid of as long as we're here, because we're going to take care of one another, because we are all in this together. In an improv show, have you guys ever gone to a live improv show? Some of you guys have. If you go to a really good one, you generally aren't going to walk out saying, that guy was good, that girl was good, those 3 were terrible. Because in improv, the star is the ensemble. If one person really stands out, you saw a bad show. And sometimes people are bad because they're not offering support. They're not doing agreement. But for it to really be good, everybody has to be supported. And the group should be the star, not a single person. And that's what we're always kind of moving towards. And so, before I say more about that, we're going to play another game. Who wants to play this one? This one's
What's it called?
It's called One Word Story. Come on up. You talk, so you got to
Come on.
One or two more? Eric, come on. Okay, this will work. This will be enough.
We can do this.
Here's what we're going to do.
We support each other.
I'm gonna ask the crowd, and I'm going to get a title for a story. And we are going to tell that story. But we're each only going to say one word at a time. So I'll say a word, then Bonnie will say a word, you'll say a word. We go around, Eric's going to come back to me. And this story needs to have a beginning and a middle and an end, just like any story. So one kind of side note before we go, it's important, we want to move the story forward, not sideways. So oftentimes conjunctions are not our friends. There was a ferret and a robin and, then you got too many characters, right? So that's a little side note. But we're just going to say one word at a time. And we're going to go around the circle until we get to the end. I need a title for a mythical story that has never been written and or performed before.
Polka dot umbrella.
The polka dot umbrella.
Nice.
All right.
Good one.
We are pleased to present to you for the very first time ever the story of the polka dot umbrella. Once.
An umbrella. That was 2 words.
Nice job.
Umbrella. Head.
Very.
Fine.
Dots.
Hmm.
It
Was
was
Sad.
Win.
it didn't win.
Every.
Contest.
One time.
Keep bending on her.
The
Biggest.
Storm.
came roaring down.
Mountain.
She just like to get into it.
But the
Polka dotted.
Umbrella.
opened too large.
Fast.
Rain.
Too large fast.
Rain.
Large, fast rain.
Fast rain. Large fast rain.
And what was that? Rain. And,
Rain.
Rain and hail.
Period.
Rain and hail. Pokey.
The.
Umbrella.
Two. I didn't hear it.
I didn't hear it.
Pokey the umbrella refused
Used
to.
close.
Wow.
Yeah!
That's amazing. Tim, is that everything you thought of before?
You did good. You got your back.
Nice job, you guys.
How'd that feel?
It's hard.
It's hard, it's scary. You're completely out of control. Yeah. When you can only say one word, you start to have an idea on how you think maybe it's going to go, and then the next, or the word, even worse, the word before you is not what you
Ruined
expected.
it.
And
But don't worry, Chris, she's got your back.
yeah. One thing that happens a lot when we play this game with younger kids, and it didn't happen here, which is great, is they just pick a word that they thought was funny and they're going to say it no matter what. Cheese and monkey are the two most common suggestions in any improv show. Both are guaranteed to be, or at least when I was doing it, maybe things have changed since then, but cheese and monkey always being said. And so you got a story, sometimes it's moving, and all of a sudden somebody just blurts something out, which communicates something. At least to the person who went before you, it tells them, I wasn't listening to you, and your idea wasn't as good as mine. Which subtly communicates a pretty damaging message to the person who spoke before you. And there are a lot of different ways that we do that. So when we talk about offering support, having people's back, like the most important way is to listen well. And this is something that happens, I have 6th grade boys, right? Having a small group of 6th grade boys is an interesting task, right? I had a kid in a headlock for most of our home group today, and he still wouldn't be quiet. Like, there's just no way to quiet him down, right? But this call can make me want to, I just need to totally take control. And sometimes they've just listened to a talk at Rock, and now they're getting another sermonette from a leader who is talking all the time. Because I know where this is supposed to go, and I know what is supposed to happen. And sometimes we get this call to, stop saying, maybe my idea for this isn't the most important thing, and it's time to listen. Pause for a moment